Lowell Planning Board meeting. Tonight we have a light agenda. The first matter we have on our agenda is a matter that comes under our old business. This is a site plan and special permit for 76-80 Roger Street, known as the old Mother Hubbard building. The Lowell Planning Board will review a proposal from the applicant to address concerns raised by the Division of Planning and Development with respect to deviation in architectural details between what was approved and what has been constructed on site. This project was before the Planning Board for site plan review and special permit and included the demolition of the former Old Mother Hubbard Mill building on site in the construction of 35 townhouse-styled housing units. The project is located on 2.172 acres, which is 2,703 square feet per dwelling unit, and is located in the traditional neighborhood mixed-use zoning district. The project site is at the corner of Perry Street and Roger Street, and the development is accessed via driveway off of Roger Street. But the project required a special permit and also a site plan review. And the meeting was held on June 4th, 2007. Do you want me to start with you, Attorney Flood, or do you want me to start with the Division of Plan and Development, what their concerns are first, and they can label theirs, and I can have you address them, whichever way you feel more comfortable with.
I don't know
myself.
how you want to proceed,
All
Tom. I know that there was a letter that was sent out. I had sent a letter in response outlining the reasons for these minor deviations. We had a meeting on site, and we went through these deviations, and I think the planning department understood the issues on a couple of the windows. But, I mean, I don't know how you would like to proceed. There's
Okay.
no question that there's been some minor deviations from
Right.
the original plan that was presented.
What I think I'll do then is, I'll turn it over to Mr. Clausen, our representative from the Division of Planning and Development. I'm going to have him, basically, he's given us a letter, basically, of, I'm sure the letter that you have that was addressed on August 5th, 2008, which was addressed to Diane Scott O'Brien. And then we had a couple of follow-up letters, then obviously they gave us a copy of what our vote was and what the special criteria was. And we do have a copy of what our vote was on the date that we allowed it back in June of '07. We do have your correspondence, and we do have received some pictures and details in regards to what was on site, what may have been proposed. I know at least one of the matters has been rectified, which would be number 4, the window located at the garage level located in the southern facade of Building C does not include the shutter as per the plans. I know as of yesterday it was there, unless you took it down. But
The what?
number 4 talked about a shutter not being there.
Yeah.
I know that's been fixed, right?
Yeah, I
That's
think
up.
they have arrived, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was here yesterday when I was there.
Yeah.
And then I noticed when you responded in your letter dated August 28th, '08, you indicated that it would be coming forthwith, and as a result, I imagine it's been up there. So why don't we, I'll start with Aaron for a little background from the planning department, and then as he gives us a little background, then after that, I'll have him go and make reference to the points that he highlighted, and then when he mentions each point, I'll let you respond to each point. Is that acceptable to the board members? You feel that would work on one instead of an overall, then an overall, and back and forth? That okay with you, Aaron? Do you have any? Okay, so why don't I turn it over to Mr. Clausen at this point in time?
All right, basically, what precipitated this whole event was just trying to drive through the neighborhood and get a sense of the development as it progressed. Several elements came apparent to me that there were some deviations to the elevation that was approved, the building elevation was approved with this project, and what was being constructed. So essentially what we did was we put together a letter to outline those changes and what our concerns were. Our concerns were twofold. The first are the architectural deviations and those elements that we found missing. The second was the process by which that the changes were made. As the board is probably aware that anytime there's a minor change or a substantial change for that matter, the applicant should request an agenda item to go before the planning board and outline those changes to the plan for the planning board's approval. Now, there's two steps to that. There's one, the planning board at that time would make a decision whether or not it's a substantial change, whereby if you've made that decision, then they would have to go through another public hearing process where we'd have to do notification for the neighbors within 300 feet. But if it's determined only to be a minor change, then it's something that the planning board can deal with at a regularly scheduled meeting without any kind of hearing, just kind of under old business. So the letter addresses those two issues. I can read through it's about 7 items that we came up with, and the kind of review of kind of a walkthrough that I had done. The first issue is the number of, basically, again, these are all kind of building details. So the first one we came across was what's called Building C on plan, which is the building that is in the corner of Perry and Rogers Street. The Perry Street facade had, on the original plan, 7 windows, and in what's been constructed, there's, I think, 4 or 3 windows, actually. And so what you end up with on probably the most, probably the second most prominent facade, a large blank gray vinyl side wall. So that's one of the deviations. The second, the gable returns on the constructed buildings are constructed with box cornices rather than a complete return. So that's the detail. If you can look in the plan, a return at every gable goes back and adds a little bit more of variation and a little bit more detail from the floor of the gable to the main building massing, where the box return kind of is a little bit less. It's a little more muted and doesn't quite create that differentiation as well. The bump out on Building C, which is the building at the corner of Perry and Rogers Street, didn't carry as low as it showed on the plan, and it just kind of gives it this kind of feeling of floating out in space, whereas in the elevation it gives it a much more depth and a rhythm as you come around that corner onto Perry Street. Window located on the garage level of the southern facade of Building C. Again, that's that primary facade on Perry Street is missing, or excuse me, I'm sorry, that's the other side that you were addressing, Chairman Linehan, that item 4, where they did place the shutters on there. So that has been taken care of. Okay. The porticos, the main entry to the buildings on Perry Street, or excuse me, on Rogers Street.
Okay, why don't I just let you back up 1 second? What I'm gonna do now is, I think the first 3 really deal with building number C, right?
That's correct.
And most of those are the deviations on the corner of Perry Street.
Well, that specifically deals with the facade on Perry
Right.
Street.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take those 3 together, and and allow Attorney Flood to respond to those 3, and then we'll take the other ones a little further, okay? So I think, is this the picture you're referring to us, that has the 2 windows here and the 1 window on top?
That's correct.
That's in our packet? Okay, so basically you're telling us it should have more windows down below, right? It should have the, I understand what you call the bump out is down below here, which hangs up above the fence. And then, when you talk about the gable returns, okay, as box corners rather than corners returns as indicated. What exactly do you mean by that? I'm not 100%.
I can kind of show you, which I don't know if
Okay.
it'll help anybody
Sure.
watching, but on these, right, guys.
So the other 2 I find pretty
All the
good.
cables that are coming down here, there's a box return, so it comes down at a kind of a perpendicular angle, whereas on full cornice return, it would come all the way across the bottom. If you look on the elevations of the plan, you can see an example of that, but it gives a better, it would come back flat along here, and would kind of carry this cornice line into this massing right here.
I got you now.
So
All right.
it gives a better separation
All right.
among the gables.
Okay. Can you address those 3 items?
Let's start with the windows. I know there was a window that was planned on the garage section. That was removed, we felt, for safety reasons, because it's so close to the sidewalk. We didn't want people looking into the garage, seeing what's in there. So, you know, someone would break in, there's no one living there. It's down on the lower level. As far as the upper floor is concerned, I think, I got David Gray with me tonight, and I think when the plan was presented to this board, the design, I don't think the interior had been set up at that point, Dave? And it turns out that on the outside portion of that building, where the window was to be placed, there's a closet. And I thought that the people from staff understood that when we showed them, and we didn't put a window in the closet, and we felt that if we put them close together, it wouldn't be proper. So you want to address that, Dave, if you want?
So would the other window be directly below the upper window to the right? So it would have a pattern? So we have three here, one up and down, and the far right, we have one up, and I imagine the other one would be below that somewhere?
Actually, on the what's we're calling the bump out there, where there's already two windows.
Right.
It was planned to have two windows on each floor. So there's a window on each that's missing on that area.
Okay, and then what about this window here below
And
it?
then there was,
Was there any windows below?
let me just take a look at that real quick, just to confirm.
So he should have had that one, two.
Yes, the plans that I have show that there would have been a window below that as well.
So we would have had two here, then the three down here. Okay, gotcha. So one, I got you. I got you now. Yep,
Here, I'll show you on elevations.
right. So they should have gone like this. Correct. Okay. Exactly. Okay. Okay, so basically, as you indicated, the approved was on the bump out, there was two windows side by side, up and down, and on the side to the far right, there was a top window, then two directly below it. So instead of for the three, you would have had seven. Okay.
Yeah, like, the one on the top floor was because of the closet, correct? The location of that window was where a closet was being constructed, and to put two together, it didn't look aesthetically right, so that's why they didn't do it. I think I explained the garage situation. I don't know where the other window is that's missing, to be truthful with you. I don't have the benefit of
On the
those.
colored picture up here, you would have had two, then 1, 2, 3,
Could I see that? I haven't seen those.
which would be right here. So on this plan here, okay, here's what's current. Here you'd have 2, 2, 1, 2, 3. So you have 2, 2, 1, 2, 3. Here you have 3. What was approved was 7, and there's 3. So you would have had, these two would have been 2 side by side, then 3, 1, 2, 3. So you have
This is the garage.
okay, right. Which is the lower one, okay, when you're talking about walking by, looking in for theft purposes, I can understand that one. The other one's up, two, so you would have 4, 2 side by side on top, and then 1, 2, 3 down. This was the plan here. So you would have had 2 by side, and then right, so you have 4. That's why you're saying that there was 7 approved and you have 3. 2, and 1, 2.
The floor plan changed on the inside, that's the reason the one upstairs changed, but I didn't see it. Well, I mean,
So how would it affect these two here? The top two?
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Hello?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the ones where there were 2 windows together here on the bump out. Well, at construction time, although this window is symmetrical because it's right in the middle, in floor plan, if you look at it, where the 2 windows were, one window would have been extremely close to a proposed closet. And at the time of construction, we came in, they looked at it, and they said that that really isn't going to work. So we tried to come up with a solution that we thought would work, and they said there's enough, we meet the code with respect to getting enough light into that room, because it's a corner room. So we went with the 1 window, and so not to make that elevation look any more asymmetrical than, than it had to. We didn't want to have one window above and two below, so we just lined them up 1/1 to make it, look a little more uniform. And the other one, the client did some changes on the kitchen, so that the sink is now part of an island that goes perpendicular to this wall. And one of the earlier versions, we had the kitchen on the outside wall with a window over the kitchen sink. And that got changed, so the window got taken out as well, because that's where the cabinets were going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, we did see that, and we did see that there actually did frame out the windows. One of the things, though, that I'm not quite understanding is that the floor plan that was approved with this does show the closet there, so I'm not sure how the closet changes the situation from what was approved to what was constructed. Because the floor plan that we have here shows the closet that you're referring to. So it's on paper, but it fit on paper, but it didn't fit in the construction?
But
I mean, I don't know. This is it. Okay.
Well, it's done, and it's unfortunate that what wasn't brought to our attention earlier before everything inside get completed. But what we've tried to do in that area is come up with a design on landscaping to kind of block that out. And one of the other issues was the bump out that we didn't bring all the way down. And the reason we didn't bring it all the way down is that we didn't see any reason for it, because it's cement space, there's nothing there. So what we would propose to do, and one of the conditions that this board placed on this approval, was to have some sort of a memorial sign for the old Mother Hubbard building. And we thought that if we could put it under that bump out and have it landscaped around, it would bring the attention to the sign. And we thought that might be a nice spot for it. I mean, it's an afterthought because we were going to put it in another spot, but it seems to work there. So that's what we were trying to do to cover up that area and try to dress it up some.
Okay, when I try to take these together, do any of the board members have any questions on 1, 2, and 3? How we relayed them to any questions on what the concerns are that Division of Planning and Development had, and what the explanation is, or how they explain why they didn't do it so far? Any board members? Yes, Mr. Genvin, if you would.
Mr. Chairman, so I understand that the floor plan that you've got now and the location of the closet doesn't support what we had on this architectural requirements, but these were requirements. They weren't suggestions, they weren't recommendations, they were requirements of the special permit. And you chose to ignore the requirements. Hold on. You chose to ignore the requirements and instead go with a floor plan that was either more appealing to the client or suited you better. So to come in here and say, oh, well, we can't put a window there because there's a closet there. Well, who put the closet there? You knew what the requirement was. You knew what this corner building, I think, is probably a key building on the whole site, right? Probably more important from an architectural standpoint than any other unit, because it's right there in the corner of Rogers and Perry. And it seems to me if you were going to comply with the requirements that were put on this construction from an architectural standpoint by the DPD, it would have been that building that you would have been most careful about. But you just decided to go do what was best for you, and now you're coming in here and say, oh, gee, sorry, there's a closet there, or the client wanted an island. Well, the floor plan should have been done with an eye toward what constraints were put on this project by the city and the board.
I didn't build it, Mr. Genvin, I just represented them. And
I understand, but you know the process, Attorney Flood. You're no stranger to this board. You're no stranger. You're no stranger to the process. So I mean, and I'm not saying that you built it, but you're representing
Right,
this
absolutely.
client, and you should advise them appropriately.
Well, I didn't know there was a problem until after the fact. And, I mean, I don't know how often the planning department goes out and checks these projects, if they're gonna do it, and whether they do it on every project. But unfortunately, they checked it, I guess, after this was done. Now, it's been done. We're trying to come up with a solution. I think the building itself conforms with the neighborhood. It's very similar to the other buildings in the neighborhood, and that's the idea of the neighborhood character.
Well, but
I mean,
that's not your decision to make. We spent an awful lot of
Well,
time.
if you wanna-
We spent an awful lot of time on this project. You know, we spent days, evenings here on this
Yeah.
project.
I know we
And
did.
we were very detailed
I
and
know
very
we did.
specific. And the DPD, and you know from the beginning, I wasn't all in love with this project. I felt it was too congested. I felt like it was pushing the envelope. But I agreed, and I voted in favor of it, in large part due to the detailed work that the DPD did with regard to architectural requirements here. I thought it made it a more reasonable project.
Well-
And for now to just turn around and ignore those requirements, to me, that's not right. And I think we set a really bad precedent
I don't think-
in doing that.
Well, I think what you're doing now is setting a new precedent. I mean, this is the first time I've ever been called in on a project, so,
Well, is it normal to just have criterion set by the board and then just have the developer do whatever they want?
I think we met most of the criteria set by the board. We missed some windows because of specific reasons that probably weren't thought of at the time we were in here, especially the one in the garage. You don't want people looking, especially it's a high-traveled area, people on foot looking in your garage. You
Well,
might
if
have
that's the
something-
case, and there's a really good reason not to comply with the criteria set by the board in the city, then I think it should have been cleared with the DPD ahead of time. You don't just make changes and
Well-
beg forgiveness later, which is what we're doing here tonight.
You're probably right. You're probably right, but that didn't happen
Definitely
in this That didn't happen in this case. So we're here now, and we're trying to explain to you why these changes were made. And that's the reason on the windows, because of a change in the floor plan inside.
I understand, but the fundamental point I'm making is,
I know you-
this was requirements. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a requirement put on the project, and you thumbed your nose at them.
No, I
Not
don't
you.
think-
Somebody thumbed their nose at the requirements and said, don't worry about it. We'll just go back and explain why, you know, we had to do it this way, and they'll say, okay.
I don't think they realized.
I mean, honestly, if part of me says, change it. We should make it change it. Because if we set the precedent now that says it's okay to just sit here for 2 or 3 evenings, come up with all these detailed requirements, and then just go do what serves you best, if we set that precedent, why not do it on every project? What's the point?
Well, a mistake was made, and we're here to try to explain why. All right, if you want to go to the, what's next, the Gables?
Sure.
Gable returns?
Let me just
Yeah.
check with the other board members first. Rich, go
I just
ahead.
have a question. Did you say that the original plans that we looked at before, we didn't have floor plans at that time? We had schematic floor plans. So, and those floor plans coincided with the fenestration of the building, the windows and... Okay, so now, what changed? I mean, what changed the plans? The interior plans?
If you guys come to the microphone, so, thank you.
I mean, why did they change?
Yeah, we were at, there were 2 things going on here at the same time. One was we applied for site plan approval, and it was necessary for us to get the footprint of the building squared away in order to develop a site plan that we could submit for approval. It's not typical that you would develop a complete set of construction documents at the same time you would develop site plan approval, because if you get denied, you will have spent all that money with an architect to develop
Oh, I
a set
understand.
of construction
I can
documents.
appreciate that,
So at the time, to comply with the zoning bylaw, and we believe the spirit of the zoning bylaw, what we did was we prepared the schematic design, and that schematic design had a floor plan layout, and we know we tugged that around, we pushed it back and forth. We came in with several iterations that, through input from the planning board, got revised. When those got revised, floor plans got revised along with it. So at the time, the project for site plan approval was approved, I believe, in June. We were probably somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 50% on our construction documents. And the only reason we were that far along in the construction documents was trying to meet a schedule for construction. So subsequent to that, as meeting one of the requirements, I believe we were required to meet with members of the DPD to go over more completed designs. I believe it was August 16th, if I'm not mistaken, that year.
That sounds about right. Well,
Yeah.
actually, maybe a little bit later, but
That we sat
Late
down
August.
and we went over the final designs. There were inconsistencies with the design. I'll be the first one to admit it, mea culpa. There's no good reason that you would understand for that to happen, but it's just the nature of the business. What happened is, as the floor plans were changing, the elevations didn't all keep up to speed.
Oh, obviously,
With that.
that's the
And
issue,
that's, that's why we have some of these conflicts with the windows.
All right, so there were some interim plans there that we as a group, as a planning board,
Yeah,
did not
and-
see.
Right, and,
Okay, all right,
and-
that explains it.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you.
Any other board members have any questions in regards to 1, 2, and 3 so far? Hearing none, do you want to say them? No. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move along, and then I'm going to let all the boards comment once we get through all of them together, all the board members as well as the applicant and division plan and development. Number 4, that matter's been fixed, that's on building C, looking for shutters, those shutters have been, I'm on there. Indicate that you would put them on there, I noticed when I was there yesterday, that shutter is now there. Number 5, let's see. Now, we're looking at the building entrances constructed on Rogers Street do not include a full pediment with molding along the bottom missing. The plan cites indication of full pediment over each, what's it, portico? Portico. Thank you. Could you explain that, Adam? Aaron, I'm sorry.
yeah, I don't know, does the board have elevations to look at? If you look at the main entrances, essentially what I'm referring to is the
What
portico.
sheet are you on? We have A4, 1, 2, and 3.
It's the one with the elevations where you can see the
A4
front
at the bottom,
entrance.
okay.
Yep. If you look at the Roger Street elevation, for example, above the main door is essentially a triangle.
Triangle,
And that's a
right.
pediment. And what's constructed is box returns again without the pediment that would run across and kind of create that complete triangle.
Right.
And again, if you look at what's constructed and what's on the elevation, you really get a sense of the difference in the level of detail, the difference in the massing and rhythm between those two from the portico to the entrance. It really creates a separation to that. So anyway, that's what that's referring to. And that's, I'm guessing, planned to be, rubber stamped with the rest of the project.
And I know, Attorney Flood, in your memo dated 8/28/08, your response to that was the molding was removed for safety reasons. It was the opinion of both the architect and developer that the existence of the pediment over the door could very well cause buildup of ice during the winter and be dangerous on the stairs. And planning and development said if you do it properly, you wanted to build up. Is that correct with your response, which we received another letter? Now, and you're saying that they could do that without the problem with the snow and ice building up?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, yeah.
I know,
Essentially, what I
I'm
was...
saying, they're saying there'd be a snow and ice problem, and then your response to their letter dated back to them, you said that if they did it properly, it should alleviate the snow and ice.
Well, I didn't mean properly so much, but I was trying to show several examples where often the molding at the bottom of the pediment is recessed under the top to the gable portion of the pediment, so that if there is any water that would, say, happen that would run off the front during a freeze, it wouldn't build up on the bottom pediment and cause any kind of harm to anybody entering their home. So if that was their concern, I think that's something that's pretty easily dealt with.
Is that in your letter, Aaron?
Yeah, that was in a letter that I sent back to you in response with some pictures of examples. Jim, that was when we had the meeting on site, that package was given to you with those images?
Yeah, I have it,
Okay, I just didn't know if you had it or not.
Dave, what do you, anything to say about that?
Mr. Flood, if you can address it through the mic, then we can all hear, if you would, please. So that's basically to fix that triangle as indicated.
like I said, going forward, after, meeting Aaron out at the project, I mean, we'll try to, incorporate that on the other ones that come down on Perry Street. If we can put some type of a molding there that you think that we could recess it back and underneath. I mean, if you want to meet out there and, if you want to give your suggestions when those are being constructed, we'll see what we can do to.
Well, that's what I was pointing to when we had the meeting on
Yeah,
site.
I understand. You said, we'll have meetings and, for the next buildings that go up on, that will have the entrances along Perry Street. And, we'll definitely, consult with you on that, on those.
That's
those
up to the
entrances.
board to.
So that's something that the applicant in Division of Plan Development may agree to put something into that may be acceptable. I mean, and then we'd have the final say anyway.
Well, we haven't had really any discussions. There hasn't been a real formal proposal to DBD about what
But
to
as of
do.
right now, the applicant's saying they'll try to fix that, correct?
What?
Forward on the next building.
You're saying they'd be able to try to fix that?
On the next building that's built along Perry Street, we'll try to incorporate that into those
Is there anything?
Let me just ask, why couldn't you fix the ones that are there now?
He will check on that, Mr. Lennon.
Because, I mean, it seems to me, if you have the V shape, you want to make the triangle, you could probably still fix it the way it stands now, construction-wise. I mean, without ripping the whole thing down, I know,
Yeah, they'll investigate that, and if they possibly can, Mr. Chairman, they
any
will
board
do
members
that.
have any question on that? Or do I mean, I can move on, we can always come back and pick away later if need be. I'm just trying to address one at a time, if that's acceptable. All right, moving on to number 6, we're looking at building F at this point in time. Indicates that there's a missing window on the second floor. It looks like, on the plans, that would be above where the window didn't have the shutters, which is above where the meters aren't boxed in on, behind the follow, or the break come out, which would be back here. So is that another design where another window was missed?
This is the building facing Roger Street.
Right. We
It's
have a
above the-
building
it's
number
above the-
F.
Yeah, we're missing a window above the portico. I think that's what we're talking about.
Right, the window would be, you know how earlier we said there was a window without shutters?
Yeah,
This would be the window above that, that's not there.
it's above the portico, but it is, and I thought they understood what happened. That's where the stairway is located to go up between floors. And if it was a window, there's a great chance that someone could kick it, a child could fall out or something like that. You couldn't line the windows up because of the stairs. And I thought you people saw that when we were there.
We saw that. They're just, the board is reviewing the letters. I haven't produced anything since our meeting, so they're going through it.
Well, that was the reason
I got it.
why that, there's the stairs there, and we were afraid that someone would kick the window out. It's right in the landing of the stairs where that window would be,
So that's basically above the entranceway then, not the
Yeah.
side, I'm sorry. Okay,
above the entrance.
okay, all right. I get on the other side. Okay, then while we're on building 7, it talks about the columns were added to the porches, was that the decks in the back?
Yeah, the decks as proposed on the elevation were cantilevered. And so, for whatever reason, they decided, for structural reasons, I'm sure, to add columns on them.
So the decks before just stick out, and now they put support beams underneath the decks? Is that basically what happened?
Right. Right, correct.
And one of the question was maybe make the support beams white to match the house or paint them or, but architecturally, the question was instead of just have the deck come out, put a support beam down.
Right.
I know one of your comments, Mr. Flood, I believe, and I don't want to take it out, was added for safety reasons.
Right, and if it was cantilevered, the moisture could migrate into the house too and cause some problems, so.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the end part.
If it was cantilevered, the moisture from the deck could migrate into the house along that cantilevered piece and cause water damage inside, so it's easier to maintain and it's for safety reasons also.
So those are added, and one of the comments was whether we'd consider leaving them as is or putting those support beams white to match, or I guess the alternative is leaving the same color match the deck, I guess. Any board members have any comments on the support beams on the decks that actually face the river, correct? Those decks face the Concord River, right?
Right, they
Right,
abut
okay.
the Mass
I'm-
Electric property.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm following all the things. Okay,
I have a,
sure. Go ahead, Richard.
on the porches, in the notes here that I'm looking at, it says columns were added for safety reasons. Can you-
Right.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
More support on that.
They had them going on here without these columns. Now they put the columns below to
Oh, I know. So it's strictly just to,
More support, plus the
More support.
cantilever could cause some water damage because if you cantilever, the beam goes right into the house.
oh, I understand how that works.
And the water
I-
could migrate into the house and cause.
I just, personally, I don't like the looks of them. I'd like to see them white or something. I just question, with the materials and technique that we have available to us, why that should be an issue. I mean, you can caulk and do all kinds of things to prevent moisture from entering a building, and I'm sure that Mr. Gray could elaborate in detail on that. So I just, I just think it's an ugly addition to the building, that's all, just a comment. And I don't think it's necessary.
Can you address that, Dave?
Yeah, I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Can you address it?
I mean, you can even tilt that like a couple of degrees to prevent it from running back into the house, and I just don't see a need for that. But, all right.
There is a door on the back side of that. Not sure if those cantilevered would come down and end up hitting that door underneath. So I'd have to check with our site supervisor on that.
Any of the board members have any questions on the columns? On building, yeah. Okay, moving on, I see in the last one, we have a picture on, I think it's, let me back up. That the meters weren't screened, and I think, Mr. Flood, in your response, and your later dated, letter dated in August, was that you'd either,
It will be screened.
I said you'd either, the meters will be screened, okay.
Yeah.
Either fencing or landscaping?
By landscaping, and I think, did we discuss the fence?
Thing about the gas company.
Well, we discussed on the on-site meeting, both the landscaping option or putting up a gate or boxing it in. So any of those three.
I think we're gonna probably try and keep with the same type of shrubs in the front to make a uniform to box those utilities in, and then some arborvitaes on the side where the electric meters are. But we're gonna inline that whole side with the arborvitaes to make it uniform.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to make sense. I've only seen this, though I don't know.
Okay, so let me back
That's
up.
gonna be adequate or
So,
not.
where those boxes are now, on building F, is it gonna be a fence with landscaping, or just landscaping is the proposal?
Well, there's gonna be landscaping there, and, I mean, there is a fence in the back side of that building now.
No, I'm just talking about the
You're
meters.
talking about C here?
I'm talking about the meters itself.
No,
Right now, the meters, you can
it
see,
would just be arborvitaes, landscaped.
So
That-
they'd
that-
be hidden.
depending on how big and how many,
Yeah, right. No, they got-
because now you can see the meters from across the street.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Last week, I thought we did.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You had a copy of that plan, didn't you?
Yeah, the one that you gave us?
Last,
Right,
2
yeah,
weeks ago, yeah.
right. So my question is, I didn't know if you're gonna box it and then put some landscaping around it or not. I know a lot of times,
We just plan to do the arborvitaes, line them,
because I know if you box it anyway, if you did something with basically the white railing that you have on the front of the, all the white trim, if you did some, box it with the white, put some trees on the outside, then it'd secure it, no problem, but I'm not sure what the board's wishes are. I mean, all the white trimming, if they put some type of white fencing, and then just put the, and, obviously with the gate coming in, then they put the arborvitaes on the outside of it. And what the board's pleasure are, usually I know it is a condition, I mean, that one was, and I know Mr. Flood said they'll fix it,
That
because
was
that's a
probably
basic condition that's part of our site plan, which
Yeah,
was,
that is,
which
it
was,
is.
which was a condition of the approval anyway, so I know that's not something that
In that, the way that building is, that's like the best spot you could put the utilities.
I don't think we have the problem with keeping them there, as
Yeah.
indicated, it's just a question of enclosing. I mean, if they say they can't move, and the question is, as they said in our condition, was this, I think the word we used was screen them.
What they originally planned, Tom, was to put the gas meters within the courtyard, but the gas company wouldn't let them do it.
And then I saw that utilities didn't want
That's
to
why
put
they
that.
moved
Right,
them to the
okay.
side, so I think the condition of approval was that they be screened.
Right.
And they're proposing to screen them with landscaping.
Let me just ask the board members, do you have any questions in regards to whether you think landscaping is fine or not, or some type of fencing? I mean, I think that's an issue we can, or a little combination of each,
Yeah, or just work with DPD and get something
you
going.
know? Aaron, do you have any concerns on it either way? I mean, sometimes they could just put, I mean, they have this, see what the railings are made out of in the house? If they just put a little bit of a gate there to block it, and then put, even on an angle, I mean, you buy those in 8-foot sections.
Yeah,
The $350 with the caps and everything on per section, that'd probably be a 4-foot section. Then you just put the flowers around it. At least you could put the white trim there. It may block it from the street. Or if you feel, do you feel that the landscape would cover it as well?
Well, just
I mean,
from
if you
this
put the
plan,
white
it's
there
hard to
next to the trim, it wouldn't stick out, but.
With a couple arborvitaes like this, I'm not sure if it would completely screen them. It would certainly make the meters harder to see from the street, but I don't know, an arborvitae on one side and then the other would completely do it. If you were to propose something where you were going to gate it in with some landscaping around that, that would probably do a better, that would do a better job at screening it, yes.
I think your condition said that the meters shall not be visible from the street.
Right.
Said nothing about screening, it would be, not be visible, and I think the arborvitae's will do that.
And the other question is if, maybe they might not. If you put the gate there, then we know they won't be. The question is, you can put trees there, but sometimes people still see through part of the trees if they're not high enough.
You're talking about the electrical meters now, right, on
Yep.
that side of the
Yep.
building?
Building F, electrical meters that you can see from across the street.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so just the thing is screen them. I mean, whether the landscape alone would do it, or whether you just do a gate, I mean, either way, I don't think putting a gate there is,
You mean a
especially where
screen,
everybody coming up Roger Street, you can see them right there.
you mean like a fence with slats in it, so you can't see it? Is that what you're
I
talking
mean,
about?
yeah, something like that, just, all you'd need would be like even if you put it on an angle, like a 4-foot section that runs angle to the house, it's a white trim of vinyl. And then put the bushes in front of it, some idea like that.
Or just put a fence out so you can't see it from the
Almost like
street?
an outside shower,
You understand what I'm saying?
made out of plastic.
yeah, just
Almost like a little outside shower with plastic, and then 2 plants.
Building F.
Yeah, if,
See on
well,
the
actually,
side,
I think that's actually building C, yeah.
It's building C, but
Oh, okay,
It is the end of building C, yeah.
okay, yeah, all right, I'm looking at the wrong, yeah, building C, I
That's-
apologize,
it
right.
is.
Yeah, in the building C,
they are pushed back, they are in
Right.
the interior of the courtyard, looking at the site.
Right.
But there is, if you turn your head coming up Roger Street, you look in the site, and they are on the side.
yeah, you can see them, I mean, when I was driving around there yesterday, I had no problem finding them.
Yep, I thought if we did a line of arborvitae's coming out in front of those, or, I mean, it's,
what if you just put a fence, just coming out a little so you can't see in?
just like boxing like with a fence.
Yeah.
But I don't even think he's not saying box it in, just a
Put
fence.
some landscaping.
I'm not saying you have to put the whole box in, say if you just put the
a
white
fence.
vinyl this way, and then put the trees on the side, I mean,
That's
say if
probably
you,
easier, then you have to worry about maintaining the
Yeah, that's what, I
landscape.
mean, I'm just not sure what it would look
Yeah.
like, but I mean, we'll look.
I mean, it's just I mean, and plan development can work on that, it'd just be, whether to do a plastic vinyl fence with some bushes around it.
We'd be happy to work on that. I don't know if we would want to do a vinyl fence. I think one of the things in this project that was decided was to not use the vinyl fence
Okay.
along the Concord River Greenway, was decided to use wood
Right.
for several reasons, one of them being maintenance. So it'd be better if we're going to put a fence there that we would use.
Well, the only
a
reason
wood
why I come up
stocking
with
fence.
the white is because I think it would match all the trim. And if you
Right,
did the white,
it would be right. We
I
could
mean,
paint it
because
white.
now the fence in the back's a different story, but if you look at all this and all the white trim, if you put a white section of vinyl there, even whether it was straight out for a little while, on an angle for a while, and then the trees either way, I mean, I have no problem with it either way. I'm just thinking, if you blocked it with a small section of vinyl and white, and everything else is white, just an idea, whichever. I don't know what the other board members feel, I think,
Yeah, you're
I
right.
mean, just screen, I mean, and it wouldn't cost you much for a small section. I mean, it's, like I say, $350 for 8 section. That's with all the posts and the caps and the rails. So that'd be 4-foot tops, right? I mean, that's the prices that
Yeah, I mean, if that would look, if that,
I mean, you know, just, and whether you do straight out, or if you did it on an angle, I mean, if you came straight out with the, I mean, something of that nature, I
why don't
mean,
we take a look at it?
Yeah, I mean, you
see
can look
what-
around
see
at
what would work, I just don't know how that'll look, just.
yeah, I mean, like I
Why don't we see
say,
what the options would be, to see what would look.
but I mean, sometimes putting that piece in might be easier than putting the bushes in.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what your price-wise are to your bushes. And then once that's up, it's, you know, it's hopefully final. You don't have to deal with the bushes, see what, you know, the bushes don't take. But that's an idea for the screening. I know you could either, any of the board members have any ideas? Any concerns on the screening, which way they prefer, or do you feel either way is acceptable?
Oh, I think as
Any
long as
comments
he's
on that,
willing
Joe?
to work with them,
Yeah, okay.
as long as he's willing to work with them.
Okay, I mean, I'll just throw that out as a suggestion, I mean,
A suitable.
I don't mean the one with the white, because everything else is white trim. If you put a piece of vinyl, they would cover it, but. All right, those are the highlighted concerns you had, Aaron?
Yeah, that was
On your
the
checklist?
8 elements that we were concerned about
Okay.
from the inspection and drive-through.
Mr. Chairman, I had a
Sure.
question.
Go- Yes, Mr.
I
Jones.
was looking at the original drawing on Rogers Street, and all of the doors on Rogers Street originally had skylights with them, which I think kind of dresses it up on the main street. They seem to have been eliminated as well. Side lights on the doors.
What?
On the doors along Rogers Street, in the original drawing, all the doors had side lights, which I thought really dressed it up on the main street, which also seemed to have been eliminated.
You mean, outside the door, you're talking a light? I don't have that, so. You know what he's talking about?
Windows that run alongside the,
Oh, the windows, I thought it was some lights. These, yes.
I didn't think the doors were.
That little window right there, yeah, right there,
I got you.
on these plans.
What number you got?
I can't answer that. I mean, that's the first I'd heard of that, so.
It's a cost cutter, that's all.
Well, it's in the original drawing, so I say it looks like it was eliminated.
Save a few more bucks.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
bear with me for just a moment. Mr. Flood, as I kind of give a little history of how we got to where we are. Because we're not looking at this in a vacuum as just some items that may not have, that had to be changed as the project went forward, but it took us a lot to get to where we are as far as what was originally proposed. We had the pre-application. We were looking at condos that were in sideways on the site. We gave our input. We had a meeting in the mayor's reception room that wasn't televised. I think, Mr. Foley, you remember that, because I think you took a lot of heat at that particular meeting, because basically what was on the table was still the original proposal, even though we had provided some input. Eventually, you came before us with what we thought, I myself, thought was an acceptable plan. I certainly think it's come a long way, turning the end units facing Rogers Street. But the detail was very important. That was what was being presented. And I know you mentioned, and I think this is my experience even prior to sitting on the board, is the neighborhood character special permit has been a challenge, to say the least. And we're looking at a situation where, and especially when we're talking about density and more units, the architectural detail, we have made a decision in this city that carries a lot of weight with how that is going to fit into the neighborhood. So this board made a determination as to what is appropriate for the neighborhood character. I've gone before the Zoning Board of Appeals on many occasions and sat through many meetings for special permits of projects that were presented, where butters asked the board, how am I going to be guaranteed that this is what's built? And clearly, they were instructed that this is what was presented, this is what was approved, this is what would be built. Certainly understand, and believe me, in my family, I'm the only one in 4 generations that wasn't a contractor. So I understand that on site there are some changes that you can look at and find that you have to make on as you go. But clearly, this approval hinged on how this fit into the neighborhood aesthetically. And I mean, to the point where we labored over the corner moldings and the size of them and whether they'd be fluted. And so I looked at, even matter of fact, what's out there right now. I listened to some of the concerns with the return on the cornice, and I took pictures of properties along Rogers Street. This is a corridor. I don't know how many thousands of people travel that road coming in and out of the city. And it is a visible gateway to the city. This board approved the church project right across. The portico is exactly the way this was presented here, and that's the portico that's there. The returns, they're there. The new construction that's taken place, Rogers Hall, the returns are there. You look across the street, portico type of design. The board's been diligent to make sure that the type of development that takes place across that corridor, along that corridor, is respective of that. So now we're in a situation where we have this built, it's come before us, and my understanding of what was being presented was just, for the most part, a landscape design to try to address it. But there's a couple things that, as a board member, I would like to see, first of all, and I know it was expressed, but is certainly on the porticos that already exist. As I look at what's already built there, I suspect you'll be able to rectify that, and I would expect that to be the case. The screening, I think the chairman had a very good suggestion as to how that could be addressed. I'm perplexed at the windows. I will tell you that part of the key, that corner building, when you look at how it dovetails with all the buildings going across Perry Street, and that was crucial. If you can recall, the original floor plan called for this to really be the back of the condos. We see that all the time. You build a horseshoe, you put the front in the middle, and then the back is facing the street. And, you know, clearly that wasn't appropriate for this setting. It's an urban setting. We wanted it to look like it was, and not to have the decks along Perry Street so that, you know, you have gas grills out there and the towels hanging from there. And so it was very, very crucial to this, how it was going to look along Perry and along High Street, Rogers Street. What happens is that, and I'm hoping we're looking at the rest of these units being built the way they're being presented here, but now you lose that symmetrical look with that corner building. That's not going to look attractive. It's just not going to look attractive. You've lost that now. I can recall the floor plan, and I believe it was in flux whether the kitchen was in the front, whether the kitchen was in the back. I know the staff from DPT met out at the site. It doesn't appear, I think they offered, I think what the ideal situation is, they wanted to present a joint solution here at the planning board. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yeah, the intention of that meeting was hopefully to come together with some proposal that we could both agree to, move forward and present to the planning board to rectify, but we never really came together on any kind of plans that we can move forward to mitigate some of these issues. So what we have is in form of mitigation is up on the easel over there.
When you met at the site, did you take a interior walk of the floor plan to see how those windows were affected? Was that?
Yeah, we did take a walk on the inside of the building. And you could see in the bedroom where the two windows didn't fit, where they had actually framed out the windows. They did look tight, but it was hard for me to see how the floor plan differed from what was proposed here in the plan set. So it was tight, but you know, I have to take their word for it that it couldn't be done. But it looked like it was framed out.
That corner building, is that building C? Is that correct?
Yeah, on Perry, corner of Perry and Rogers, Building C.
Is there anything, Mr. Gray, I know you probably have a better idea, is there anything that could be done possibly with those windows?
Can you just address it through the mic, please? Thank you.
It's all been framed in, sheet rocked, insulated, everything's, the mechanicals are in there. Like I said, we've proposed, after talking to Aaron, is put a tree up there, because, and a hedge on the blank wall. Put a large tree, plant a tree there, and then erect a hedge underneath, so you don't see, like Aaron was saying, was concerned with the blank wall. If you have a tree growing there to break that up.
I mean, I hope you can appreciate what...
I understand.
we're-
I mean, I understand. It's and Mr. Gentleman, in no way did we thumb our nose at the board. You know, when you made reference to that, we have site meetings out there every couple of weeks. We try to pay attention to the details. There's things that go on, and in no way did we say, "Oh, look, there's windows here. We're going to take them out." You know, that absolutely wasn't the case. And we've tried to address every detail here. I've had a lot of compliments on these buildings for people that live in the neighborhood. I don't live too far from there. I think it really has been a big improvement to that neighborhood, these buildings. And I mean, if you know, you say that if there were recommendations by Aaron, and you know, and some of them, you know, we can, you know, dress that up to address, you know, what's there what is there now. And like I say, going forward, we'll make sure that, you know, some of those, you know, minor details will be, you know, paid attention to with, you know, Aaron's recommendations.
Could, the porticos can be fixed. I'll take a hammer out there and I can fix them for you. Those porticos can be fixed.
But we're gonna work to, you know,
The
straighten it
return cornice, and that, not as easy, because those were boxed in vinyl. What would it take, do you think, to do that, so that at least on the street side, on Perry in the corner, and, you know, one of the other things that does, and I can tell you that, and I started getting people comment on, a good example was the CVS on Bridge Street, is once the architectural details started to go in, the mass of the building started to come down. And it's little things like that that make a big difference.
Right.
And so you have that return, you've got the hint of, matter of fact, in here, that return would have had some shingles on it, some roof shingles on it, versus the boxed in vinyl, white vinyl that you have. But I know that's labor intensive, requires a lot. I mean, have you even looked at that, or did you just, you know, even though it was pointed out and said, look, we did it?
I mean, it's just, as you know, cost is
I understand.
a big part of it. You know, things aren't going well, as you
No,
know.
well, and that's, my
If
concern
it
is
was-
that, have you
If we could
looked
go
at
back in
it?
time and do it, I mean, absolutely, but I mean, it's been done, it's, you know, it's be a very, you know, very costly thing to, as you know, would be to try and fix that. The boxed in corners.
Did you see the ones across the street, the houses across the street that have all chicken wire around them?
No, I looked and I couldn't see
I
anything.
don't know,
Right
here's
across
here's
the
a
street.
copy of I took a picture of the house across the street.
Right across the
Very
street.
nice, I didn't see any, but
No, you
this
go
this
look at
here,
it. I can point it out to you. They have
Or
chicken
on
wire right
Perry
in.
Street, I didn't see a thing.
on Perry or on Rogers?
On Perry Street,
I'm
Perry Street.
I'm
Right
looking at
across the
Rogers.
street.
See,
chicken wire at
Mr. Flood, one of the concerns, when we talked about especially the neighborhood character, and that's why when I explained this, I was very, if you listen to what I was trying to point out, is that Roger Street is a corridor. The board has taken painstaking steps to make sure that new construction that's gone on along Roger Street pays attention to that. I mean, you've got Fort Hill, you've got Rogers Hall, you're coming into the downtown. All of those buildings, there's probably 4 buildings that you can tell, you know, the era that they were built aren't true to those architectural details. But the new construction that's going on has those architectural details. The church has that. Home across the street, very nice Victorian-looking home. So, again, you've got a very visible corridor, and that's why it meant a lot to this board to make sure that's why we didn't want to have it sideways on that lot. And that's, you know, we put these tools in place. They're great tools to use and apply, and we put the conditions, and then the concern is, then if it doesn't get complied with, it's all for naught. It's just writing on a page. So, I mean, I think that's the dilemma we're faced with right now, and I'm trying to come up with something that's reasonable, but it can still, I just hate to see the project in that particular area shortchanged by what we were trying to accomplish. So I think, you know, I'm pleased with overall what we were able to accomplish out there, but disappointed with some of the key, you know, it's the details on especially when you're talking architecture, the details are the key. I mean, Mr. Foley, you know that. I mean, the minor details are the key. And I expected when we approved this, and that you would work with DPD for final design, but I really expected that this was what we were going to see when it was completed. So I think right now we're looking at the porticos can be fixed. The screening of the utilities, I think, can be addressed. You're looking at right now the tree to address that window situation.
That's good.
That was at the suggestion, really, of Judge
Sure.
Proakis.
Well, I mean, at this point, we're trying to...
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's
it's-
why we came up with this plan.
I met with a landscaper out there, and under that, the bump out we were talking about, and Jim was saying we could put that,
The old Mother Hubbard,
or do a hedge
yeah.
underneath that.
Well, I like that. I mean, that'll kind of bring, again, that kind of brings it, scales it down, and that was the intent of that.
Well, I think,
If we had to, as you're saying, it's a large grade, that hedge could continue down to the end of the building with the tree.
If I could just
Ray,
clarify.
why don't you, could you go to the landscaping plan and just address it when you're talking that way? And if you could take the microphone, if you don't mind. Thanks. This one right here. Thanks.
Steve, yeah.
I know you put that up there, but if you could address it
Sure,
and point to it, I
that'd
think
be great.
everybody... Why don't you just first give us an overview of the landscaping plan as how you oppose to address the concerns that are raised by Division of Planning and Development, and then I'm gonna let Jerry take you on one at a time.
This is the point in question here, this back side of this building, see? This corner here, the windows are here, and it's
That's
a
on-
large grade.
That's on Perry Street, right, correct.
This
Yep.
is on Perry, at the corner of Perry
it.
Road. It's down Perry Street.
Right.
There's nothing here, right, there's grass right now, sprinkler system. What we would do is we would plant a tree on this corner, you know, that comes up so high, which, you know, will grow up, and just like this one that's been left here. And then there's an issue with the bump out on this corner here, it's up higher than what it was on the, then we were proposing maybe to put that, we saved the granite that said the Dutton, I'm not sure, what was the name of the, on there? Oh, Hooper Knitting. the
Hooper Knitting Mill,
we-
yeah.
We saved that when we demoed the building. So we were thinking of maybe making that on a monument, maybe we'll sit it on some brick or something underneath, maybe with some shrubs around that. Or what else was proposed with Aaron was maybe do a hedge from here to underneath that bump out. So now it's, you know, you're not looking at a bump out that's, you know, this high. You got you're only seeing that much space in that. That's to address this corner here, that, you know, with the missing windows here, we have a tree there to kind of break it up, and then the hedge underneath here to break the bump out being as high as it is. And then, you know, with more landscaping with where the gas utilities would be in the front, with the shrubs that are there now to, you know, to make it uniform. And then we talked about arborvitae. This is where the utilities are for the electric meters. We talked about maybe doing a row of arborvitaes right down in front of that. But we'll look at that, whatever looks
And,
better.
Mr. Gray, you're looking at trees in the front, because I noticed, again, with what was presented, and you're talking about a symmetrical look, is that you had your entrances for the center units close together, and then you had a window on each side, and now what happened is that the entrances were pushed closer together, leaving a large expansion of siding between the entrances, so which, I guess, is that the DPD, Aaron, is that something you worked with to try to come up with that, or is that what you were proposing?
Are you talking about the trees?
Yes, in the front, in the very front of the,
Just to clarify our recommendations in the letter, some of the suggestions we were making for a proposed mitigation plan were just general ideas that were supposed to be taken and kind of expanded on. With respect to the landscaping, we pointed out some possibilities that David has pointed out to you, but our overall recommendation, I'm getting some feedback here, sorry guys. Our overall recommendation was that the applicant hire a landscape architect to come up with a plan, an overall design that would create the rhythm and kind of the texture that we were looking for in the building that is missing. We gave some suggestions that we thought might work, but the idea was to take that, work with a landscape architect, and develop an overall landscape plan. I think it looks like you took what we discussed and kind of put it on there, which I guess is a first step.
This was after meeting a landscaper out there
Oh, okay.
with Jerry to put it on a plan.
There's
Conversations
right.
about where we thought things would line up.
So my concern, I guess, with this is that although, I mean, I think having a tree there is a good idea, the concern is, the reason why we would want a landscape architect to have a signed set of plans is whether or not that tree would survive in that small space between the building and the curb, the back of the curb. You have 2-3 feet, maybe a little bit more.
The landscaper looked at that, he said it wouldn't be a problem.
I guess what we were looking for was something on a stamped plan by a registered landscape architect to show, give us something of what that we could be sure would work and work over a long period of time. I mean, a tree that close to the building, how's that going to be maintained? How's it going to be pruned to make sure it's not grown to the building? So, I mean, it may work, it may not work. One of the other suggestions we were saying was that if there's not enough space there, maybe bulb out that edge there from that point, bulb out the sidewalk into the street from where that tree would be to the intersection to provide a little bit more room for landscaping. And also traffic calming would be a byproduct of that. Now, we haven't measured the street width there. We haven't really looked at whether or not that is really a feasible option, but that was something we threw out there in the case where a tree planting wouldn't fit in that spot. So I guess all I'm trying to say is that these are ideas we have kind of thrown out there to try to break up and create the visual interaction that we were looking for from the building, knowing that some of these solutions can't be rectified at this point.
Right.
There's some windows that we know can't be put in there because of the way it's been built. That the landscaping now has to take more of an active role in creating that rhythm. But we were looking for something that was created by a landscape architect.
I thought we had that discussion that we weren't going to get a stamped plan at the site.
Well, you said you weren't, but that doesn't mean that provides a solution that we...
We wanted a landscape plan, and that was what we got. I mean, we had the discussion, I thought you were there, maybe George was there, that we weren't going to hire a landscape architect to do it.
I was there, and I know that you said that, but that doesn't mean that we're comfortable as an apartment with this kind of a plan.
Well, I mean, if staff has some suggestion, we'd be glad to listen to it. This was our proposal.
Our suggestion was to hire a landscape architect to come up with something that would create the rhythm and the interaction between the building and the neighborhood that would be in its place. Since that architecture and that design cannot happen as it's constructed, we were looking for something that could be done with landscape. We gave you some suggestions, but we can't design the site for you.
I thought, I mean, like in every other project that I've been involved with, when there's landscaping, we deal with staff coming up with a final plan. And that doesn't involve a landscape architect.
We're looking for something with a little bit more detail, given it was a special permit, and that we were dealing with an interaction with the neighborhood character that needed a higher level of design acumen. That was something that was expected on the architecture there. From my understanding, I wasn't there at the early stages of this project. My understanding, there was a lot of work in making sure the architecture worked. It wasn't built to that standard, so our expectation was that the landscape architecture would then take the role of the building and be designed to that level of detail.
So part of the concern is if you put the tree there, the question will be if you want the tree to go up high enough to fill in where the windows might have been, or should have been, whichever way you want to phrase it.
I mean, I don't think it's gonna come.
That's what I mean.
tree's gonna
I mean,
go
what do you
on.
do?
Probably like, you know.
If you put a tree the size of the, if you put a tree the size of the wrought iron fence,
Break it up.
No, it would be, it's
You know what I mean?
a good-sized tree, but it's not gonna grow.
because I mean, question is, like you say, if you get a good-sized tree, they would go up and at least cover where the first window would have been, then you might have.
Yeah, I think 10-foot high, some 10
You might
foot high,
have,
would
you know,
grow
if it
to
goes any higher, would you have root problem going into your building? Would you have root problem going into your fence? Would you have root problem going to the sidewalk? I think is what Aaron was touch base on, so what size the tree would be. You know, I can see the bushes wouldn't have an effect, but the fact of you put a tree there, the size of the tree could impact the design of the building as well.
Excuse
So
me.
if you did 8 feet, how tall is the wrought iron fence? What's
4
that?
feet.
4? So it'd double that, so it'd probably come up a little higher than where your breakout is, right, approximately? Give or take?
A little bit higher.
What's your breakout stop at, probably?
8 to 10 feet, so we go.
So probably be about the height of the breakout.
Yeah.
Then the question is, do you buy one that's already at that height? Or are you gonna wait multiple years to reach that height? Just an idea.
All right, Mr. Chairman, just to kind of sum up my things that I would want to see, again, the existing porticos, I'd like to see that addressed. We discussed the screening on the utilities. I guess the balconies, what they originally were proposed as balconies, I think if we could do something to lessen the, now, I'll hold off on that. I guess the two things is the portico, the screening, and then I'll defer to my colleagues regarding the landscape and kind of weigh in as to what we think the best course of action is on that at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Just one comment.
Yes, Rich?
And you were gonna check on the porches? Just with your field? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, okay.
I'd like to see something on that.
Any other board members have any concerns? Anything?
Just in a general sense, I mean, part of what we're talking about here is the process and, you know, what brings us here today. Of course, we have a plan approved by way of a special permit and, you know, with certain conditions. And it appears to me most of the conditions are met, with perhaps the exception of the screening, which we're going to try and take care of. But the problem that we're running into is that there's deviations from the plan. Now, when we have our final meeting and everything's approved, we're left with a feeling that it's going to be built a certain way, and the city feels it's going to be built a certain way, and the public feels it's going to be built a certain way. If it's not going to be built that way, and I understand the rationale behind it, there may be valid reasons once you get into the field that you know, it couldn't be constructed in the manner that was set forth on the approved plan. But the proper way to address that would be to bring the proposed changes back to the board so that we don't find ourselves in the position that we find ourselves in tonight in trying to correct those things. So, I mean, the horse is out of the barn at this point. We're trying to make the best project that we can make for you and for us and for the city. But it becomes a bit of a difficulty. So the question is, how do we correct it? There are a few suggestions made here tonight. I understand certainly the letters that Aaron has written to the developer. I understand the responses. I understand the letters that were written in response to the responses. What I don't understand is what would be the proper way to fix these things and how to correct it and what can be corrected and what can't be corrected. I'm just going to throw out a suggestion for the board to consider, is perhaps this would be an appropriate project that we take a view of the site with the developer, with the architect, with his builder, and perhaps with a landscape architect and representative of the city, so we can review these items and make the best determination we can as to how we can correct these items. It's a little hard for me to do it just upon the paper, and I've seen the project, and I understand what you're saying in terms of what needs to be corrected, but I think that this would be an appropriate project for us to take a look at it and meet with all the parties together and see how we get to this spot and how it can be corrected, because certainly we want to correct it. Obviously moving forward, we want to try and prevent these problems from coming up again, and there'll be, I'm sure, some discussion among the board as to how to do that. But my feeling is this would be an appropriate place where we might want to take a quick view, come up with some suggestions, put a plan together, and try and accomplish it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in agreement with
Okay.
Yeah, I am
Mr.
too.
Coleman. I think that's
So what we
excellent.
could do, would basically, what we've done a few times in the past, is we could do a site visit with the board, okay? What I would encourage is, if some of the things have been suggested that you say you're gonna fix, you don't have to fix now, but if you come up with those ideas, like example, for the meters, I know you have 2 trees there now. Then a little while ago, when you showed it to us, you said you're gonna put the whole row of trees. Well, if you put the whole row down, is one way of doing it. If you do it some other way, I have no problem. I don't think that's a problem screening the meters. I think that you can fix. It's just a question of how you do it. I think the main thing would be, as indicated, you can fix the eaves over the doors. I think you indicated you could do that. We can take a look at the columns. I looked at the columns already. It's a question of, they're the same color as the deck that's there now. So if you make them white compared to that, are they safety issue? I think once we, I went and looked at it yesterday, but I think when we get up close, I don't usually walk right up close and look in the windows, do that in the site plan, people there. But anything, we could schedule a site plan. What we could do is, we don't have to pick that date and time now. I can speak with the board members, feel it's good for them. Obviously, I'm thinking with the daylight savings, we'll probably have to do it maybe, gonna have to be on a weekend, which we can see it all in daylight. I don't think walking through there when it's dark at this point in time with construction and back by that river. I mean, I was there yesterday at 4 and it was starting to get dark, and I didn't want to start walking around there, to be honest with you. So I think if you could address some of the issues, have the line of communication open to the Division of Planning and Development, we can get back to the parties to figure out what's a good time to get people together, and maybe that, I think after work, like I said, it'd be too dark for everybody. I don't think we have enough lighting to address all the issues. I know, a lot of people go by there. I go by there all the time, and I looked at it. You can see the difference are. But I think if we could set up the site plan visit, that's what's been a recommendation made out here, council, if he has any objections to that or anything he wants to add, or,
No, I have no objection.
okay?
I think maybe you probably should continue to your next meeting and then schedule.
And then in the interim, we can try to pick a date. I'll speak with the board members.
Yeah.
We have to do that tonight, and put everybody's calendars together.
Pick a warm day.
And we can get back to you, try to pick up, I don't know if we can pick it around this schedule of the weather, but then we can see what Division of Planning and Development staff is, their availability, and we can throw out some dates and times that we can communicate with each other. So
Okay.
if that's the intention, what's been indicated, we could make, if somebody wants to make a motion, that we'll continue this matter to our next meeting, which I believe is December 15th. Okay?
That's correct.
For an update on this plan. In the interim, we'll try to get a site visit in with all board members, the applicant, and Division of Planning and
Yeah,
Development.
if Aaron contacts me, I'll contact.
Yeah, I mean, try to get some availabilities,
Yeah,
and then we can try to see what the people's schedule are. But I think the only way we can do it, obviously, would be a weekend with the walkthrough for daylight.
The one comment I would make is I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I would have to place a notice, since there's a quorum of the planning board, provide notification,
Because we have a quorum.
publicize the meeting.
Okay, yeah, we could do that. We could publish it, yeah. I mean, you'd have to, I think for the open meeting law, if we're all going out there together, we have to be satisfied on that.
yeah,
You know,
to
just say-
satisfy the open meeting law, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
would.
Either that, maybe we can do it like the first Saturday in December, and we can cover our December meeting that day.
Oh, I don't know.
We have anything else on December 15th? Maybe we can go that Sunday instead of that Monday.
We need a motion, right?
But, so, yeah, I mean, if anybody would like to make a motion,
I'll make
entertain
a motion
that we
that-
continue it with the interim, hopefully get a site plan visit together.
I'll make a motion that we continue this until December 15th meeting.
Motion's made, all in favor?
Aye.
Second? Aye? Okay,
Aye.
all in favor? Any
Aye.
further okay, we'll put off that date. Thank you.
Nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chairman Leonard and I missed who seconded. You, thanks, Joe.
We got the motion in the second, right, okay.
Make sure you get it right.
That makes sense. So let's keep this.
Good luck.
Clark, David.
Okay, moving along, we had some notices of abutting towns that we just put in our file for our correspondences. We had no A&R reports today. We do have two matters that are going before the Planning Board of Appeals. We'll take up those matters now. These are matters that are going to appear before the Zoning Board of Appeals on November 24th, 2008 at 6:30 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. The first one is for a special permit variance for a sign. This is the CVS Pharmacy on 1815 Middlesex Street, which is a regional retail zone, to allow a freestanding, internally illuminated signage in rear border for CVS and Bank of America, according to sections 6(3)(2) of the zoning ordinance. So this matter is for sign. There is some copies in our packet. Any board members have any comments in regards to the sign?
Mr. Chairman, does it make sense to, again, refer this to our chief design planner for recommendations for the sign?
There's a motion being made by Mr. Jennings to refer this to our design
I'll
plan in regards to sign.
Second the motion.
Matter is made and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The next matter is for, this is for a variance at RJL Realty LLC on 301 Chelmsford Street. This is for regional retail zone to raise an existing structure and construct a new commercial building within 15 feet of the USF residential zoning district according to sections 4.5.4 and 5.1 of the zoning ordinance. Basically, what they have up there now is a kind of dilapidated garage, and it looks like they want to rip that down and put in a little variety store. Basically, it's right next door to the Getty station there on Chelmsford Street, almost right across the street from the Lincoln School.
Yeah.
I mean, then to the right of that, it's Queen's Pizza. And it's on the little ways up in the corner of Liberty Street.
Yeah.
I mean, the zoning district changes, so it looks like the rear portion of this is in the zoning. I mean, there is some pictures, looking at the site. I was there yesterday in that garage, where all the cars are, the garage is basically falling down.
Oh, yeah, it's a mess.
I mean, by the zoning code, they could go up 3 stories. They're looking just to go up 2. Like I say, it's between the Getty Station and the Queen Pizza. And I noticed the elevation in the back goes up and there's a slope coming down. It appears by his narrative that the building there now does not meet the front and rear setback, which he meets everything but the rear, and the rear now is more intrusive than what he proposes to put in. He could do a 3-story, but he's only requested to do a 2.
And he's cleaning it up.
Yeah, it is cleaning up the site. The site is in desperate need of repair.
Like that. Goes, heavily.
I mean, obviously, you'd like to hear what the input is from the neighbors. We don't have that at this recommendation, but I think it would help clean up the site that does need some repair. And I like the fact that he's only going 2 stories where he's allowed to do 3 in that zone. That was my first concern when I saw the 2, but, then the question is, it looks like they can address the parking. They should have enough on site, but, yeah, it's in between the Getty Station and that Queen's Pizza on the corner of Liberty.
Highly visible spot.
Yeah, it is a visible spot. Like I say, in the schools across the street, just down, right across the street from the Getty Station, which abuts it to the left. So it looks like he has most all the criteria except for the rear yard.
Looks like it'll be a substantial improvement for that area, and it looks like it's gonna be less, less non-conforming, if that's the
Yeah, I mean-
appropriate term, than what's there now, so I'd make a motion, recommend approval.
Motion for approval, and
I'll second.
and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. On general correspondences, we did receive a letter from the city solicitor that was requested on the zoning of Columbia Street. Any board members have any question on that? We have that.
Mr. Chairman, can I just elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure.
Because this was actually a question that I had asked DPD, and actually it was asked in the, wondering if there was anything we could do as far as conditions. However, this was a response, and this particular site, I think the reason we're even entertaining any kind of a zoning change is to address the concerns that the neighbors have on Columbia Street. And I think that, I have some real reservations overall, but I think if in fact the petitioner's intent is to cooperate with the wishes of the people on Columbia Street, I think that this memo from council is saying that this is clearly a tool that can be used as long as the petitioner is willing to agree to it. And I think what I would like to see this board is at least encourage DPD prior to the petitioner coming before us is to work with them to come up with something that's presented to us where they are willing to make it a condition as part of the plan. And it's clearly stated here that it is used as a tool where there's to mitigate impact on the neighborhood. But, it's not something that we can apparently impose, but clearly if the intent is sincere, as I'd like to think it is, then I think there would be a willingness to work with that. That's my thoughts on that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and I think on this here, when we have them coming back before us for the zoning change, we can let them know what our suggestions are, because then if they do get the zoning change, it will come back for us for site plan. That's right. So at least we can say,
Just
this is where you're going, we like where you're going, as long as it goes this way, then we might act favorably on it, come back for site plan. But at least we'll be more encouraged when you come back for site plan.
Right, but as we know, I guess the frustrating thing, because over the years have been, I don't hold much stock in site plan to certain issues.
Right, I understand.
And if they comply with certain requirements of site plan as a board, matter of fact, that's the reason why we've asked this board, and that's the reason why we enacted in the new zoning is certain special permit authority of this board in order to have some latitude with projects where site plan review just doesn't give it to you. So, believe me, because I've in my ignorance early on in dealing with these issues, I've been told site plan review is where everything is addressed. Well, there are things you can address, but as we know, there are certain by right things with zoning that as long as you comply with it, it's very tough to address in site plan review, and that's always been a challenge. And so whenever we look at a zoning change, and wherever it could, it's an upzone, as I like to refer to it, I'm always a little apprehensive of that, and especially where you have a residential neighborhood abutting. So, yeah, my desire would be that it would be addressed with the zoning, so that when it does come before us, there's already something that's been agreed upon with the zoning. But I obviously I have very strong opinions and feelings about that, Mr. Chairman, but certainly that is my concern, because once the zoning is changed, then there are certain by right things that follow that property for the owner, and and try to explain that to people that the owner of the property has rights. They have rights, and the zoning spells that out. So once you change the zoning, they have rights to do certain things. And so I do have concerns where it's abutting a residential neighborhood, and where we've gotten to this point because we're all trying to address apparently the adverse impact to that direct neighborhood. So anyways, that's my thoughts, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Haven't had general correspondence. Does any board members have any communications they want to address with the board? Having none, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, what I'll just suggest is that if we could just look at our calendars, try to get a couple of dates that we have that may be appropriate, and then we'll try to run them through you, Aaron, and if you could just check with people in-house, see who would you want to be available in the vision plan and development for the site walk.
Absolutely,
I know you're
yeah.
talking about, we have this weekend come up, then the Thanksgiving weekend, I know a lot of people do travel, so
Right.
that's a tough one, but.
We would be looking at a weekend, correct? Probably Saturday? you
Yeah,
said?
so I'm thinking that
Saturday?
the Thanksgiving weekend would probably be a tough one that people make. I know I'm available, but I know a lot of people do travel and stuff, but, you know, if people are available that weekend, but I know,
Probably won't be.
you know,
Yeah,
but I mean, whichever. I mean, if we could do a Saturday morning, that's fine with me too. I mean,
Okay, just, I think I could certainly make whatever works for the
I
board.
mean,
and
if
I'll-
you wanted, anybody else want to come from the division?
We would
plan
probably
development?
either have the chief design planner, Diane Trad, or
Yeah.
George Poakis to join, whoever it could make it. Diane, absolutely, or maybe both, but Diane could certainly provide some
Right.
guidance on the
Or,
landscape.
you know, what- or if not, if anybody, I mean, I know your staff's been up there. If someone who can't be up there can relay the communication to the person who's going to be there,
Yeah.
you know?
Would it be appropriate to ask perhaps someone from the building department to accompany us?
Yes, in fact, we had
Good idea.
the
Yeah, somebody a little
building
more knowledgeable
inspector for that
about
area
construction.
with us when we did the site visit.
I think
so
that'd be
we could
helpful,
certainly do that.
because he knows, you know, the ins and outs of the construction
Yeah.
phase of it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
And he also might have some remedies that we're overlooking. I mean, you know, with a construction guy could say,
Yeah.
well,
That's a great idea.
might bring us inside, and say, gee, you can fix that, just move that over. I mean, you know,
No, yeah,
you know,
somebody that,
and tell them they have the keys so we can go inside and look.
sure,
You know, I mean,
Good
they might have a small solution that
Yeah.
might alleviate some
We
of it.
wouldn't.
Or he might say, you know,
yeah, I'll be sure to invite either the
Yeah, so whatever,
inspector
I mean,
who's in that
just-
area or the building commissioner, Bob Camacho,
Yeah.
might be able to, one of the two.
yeah, so I mean, if we just look at some dates, and then we can communicate with you as the week goes on and try to pinpoint something down.
Okay.
I'm sure with different schedules, take a little while to,
so we'll just wait.
yeah, what we'll do is try to figure out what you have in the calendars, and we'll touch with him during the week and see what dates people are available. But let me, is it easier to do a Saturday than a Sunday for everybody? Is that probably the best way to go? Yeah.
Yeah,
Saturday morning we'll look at?
Yeah,
That'd
that
probably
should
be
be,
a better way
I
to
think
do
that
it?
should be fine, yeah.
Huh?
Just not too early.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me, I mean, like, you know, I'll try to adjust whatever I can. I mean, some days I know now that I
Yeah,
can't make, but I know other days I
Could
can.
sneak out at lunchtime, Tom, we could do a lunchtime, because I know, yeah. Jerry's always available.
I'm flexible too. I mean,
If you want to do that at some point.
I might be able to do it on a certain day,
Yeah,
if I know in
I could too,
advance.
yeah.
I could be
Totally
there.
flexible.
I was thinking for the city people coming in a weekend
Sure.
might be a problem.
I could be there if we did it,
How about early morning? If you do
Huh?
it- can anybody do an early morning?
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's a proposal.
7
too.
o'clock or something like
Okay.
that?
fine.
When we, make a motion to adjourn, we'll take the motion, then we'll discuss our schedule thereafter, okay?
Can I-
Before we do that,
Okay,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to, along the lines of what we're discussing tonight, just a consideration, maybe we should put something on our approvals for special permits, that any deviation in the plans or proposed changes in the condition require them to come back to the board for review, so there'll be no misunderstanding there. Because I think once it leaves us, and it's out of the attorney's hands and it's into the hands of the contractor, they may see something in the field, say, that doesn't work, I'm gonna move it, just do it on their own. So I think we should make it clear that any deviation has to come back here.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Claremont, and what's happened, I think, is the special permits coming out of the planning board seem to have some issues relative to that, and I think that would help to reinforce that it's not just site plan, but it is, you know, site, the
And,
special permits. I think that's
One
a
thing
good
that Joe mentioned last meeting was, if we have something of good size, we could leave it on the agenda for a future road, for report date.
Sure, yeah.
You know, like he said, other cities and towns do it, like,
Yeah.
if we have something big or something like this, we're like, all right, we wanna make sure everything's going up to snuff, okay? We're gonna approve it, but we're gonna put on, just on our agenda as a report.
I think that's
And
two
then, you
good
know,
ideas right there.
remind us to keep it on in mind, you know, just for policing issue. You know, 'cause I know what we approve, and we all know, and I think even Steve brought up an issue that we were thinking about, that was supposed to be employee parking, and then when he mentioned it the other night,
Yeah, that's-
obviously I've been by there several times since, I'm like, yeah, you're right, I went, you know. At first, I didn't catch it because of the fence was there, but you went there, it's all grassed in. You know, and I think a lot of those, how many of them are, you know, when that's probably a minor thing that could have been fixed, we pushed the envelope, but this year, you're looking at a bigger project, I think more so on a big project we put on for a report instead of a small one. But on any one, you could just call them in, but I mean, something like that, I think has a tendency to slide by more than like You know, like big projects like the CVS, the Market Basket that we just approved, you know, and like this here, because this took a lot of discussion. I mean, this wasn't something
Oh, yeah, we
that,
discussed
you know, it
this
was.
Right.
The good thing about this, the house got, well, at least the old Mother Hubbard's gone and the smell is gone. At least, that's the first part of the project that we've accomplished. So there was
Well,
detriment to the neighborhood for sure.
and I was gonna
Now we're
say-
trying to make the best project we can out of the project.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, but I mean, at least getting that eyesore down and getting that aroma out of the neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
is a plus. I mean, it really is, so. But, yeah, so, any
I
other?
think that suggestion is a good one, John.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we gotta recognize also that
I mean, you know, you learn by trial and error, and I think this is
Well, you
definitely
gotta-
one that falls into that
you
category.
gotta lay the law down.
Right.
And, we gotta recognize that oftentimes field changes are necessary
Right.
to continue the job. And you gotta be maybe a little lenient, but
Right.
I think you gotta define it that way.
And I think, as Steve said, and I
Just
said
to
before,
protect the-
if it was a minor
the
change or something like that, you know, if they bumped out one window, do you think it would be here tonight? You know what I mean? It's the, as I say, the totality of the whole circumstances, you know? And if something is, if we put a condition on them, and then we find out later on site that that condition isn't really wanted, the way people, you know, then they come back and say, we don't think so, I would be the first to
Well,
say.
that's what I'd like to see,
Okay,
is
yeah, I
is
mean, okay,
exactly.
maybe that condition is not wanted, and tell us why it's not working, and say, okay, maybe what we thought was for the best of the safety of the people
Right.
isn't really indicated in the way it's working, it's not necessary. I mean, because, I mean, they come in to relieve a condition, and never come in and say, can you give us another condition? So, yeah. Sort of like an athlete contract. If you do well, you want more, if you do bad, you want the same.
What to say.
You know, you never say, give me less, because I had more drops this year. But, so, saying that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, can I
Sure,
just
go ahead,
interject on that subject? I don't want to beat a dead horse, but there's just a couple things I wanted to let the board know on this subject that we're working on. One is we're working on a kind of a checklist. It's a site plan review and a special permit through the planning board checklist of all the conditions that are placed on an approval for either of the two. Will be, a checklist will be sent out with that decision letter. And before a applicant is able to get a building permit, they must get a signature and a sign off from whoever has to review that condition to make sure that they comply with it. So there would be two phases. There'd be at one point when they get the building permit, and then when they get the certificate of occupancy, because there's different conditions that would be on the hook for these different permits. Then the last part of that was that I would once we finally get the final plan set that shows that they've addressed, or any kind of other documentation that shows that they've addressed these conditions, I will sign the plan saying this is the plan. So it makes sure that everybody that is involved, the planning board and the applicant and DPD, that what's on that plan is what needs to be constructed. And if there's any kind of deviation from that, it's a little bit more clear what our base plan that we're working from. So that hopefully will solve some of these problems that we're coming across, particularly in the special permit, because that review obviously has a little bit more deference. And we're taking a closer look at the design, and it's a little harder for our inspectional services department to really kind of follow up on those details, where it's getting a little bit more incumbent on myself and our department to kind of follow up on some of those issues. Where we can state this checklist, it will put it on the applicant's shoulder to make sure that they're getting it done. And then lastly, just so that realize it's not this project that we're looking at, there's the project at 1519 Middlesex Street, the project that was a retail strip center. We've had some conversations with them. They have the asphalt for the parking lot laid, but they didn't have any landscape islands as proposed, or any of the lighting posts. So I've been in touch with them to let them know that needs to get done. I've gotten an email correspondence saying that they should have that by the end of this week, so I'm going to follow up on that. But just so you know that we're looking at this at other projects, and that one happens to be a site plan review, so it's not just a special permit.
Okay.
But we'll be following up on that one as well, because that one.
This is the one by the karate studio, right? That one?
Correct.
Oh, that one,
Okay,
yeah.
That was the neighbor to the left had some concerns which we addressed twice, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That was.
And it goes back to the railroad tracks, yeah.
And that was another issue, that some of the agreement that the applicant and the condominiums came to that addressed one of the conditions that was screening, There was some disagreement whether or not between the two they were actually meeting the tenor of that agreement. So they're working on that with the neighbors, and then they're also going to be working on the parking lot now that we've been there. So I plan on being back there later this week just to make sure that things are progressing as they should.
Sure. Let us know. Okay.
I will.
Anything further? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye. We have adjourned. Good night. Thank you, everyone.